Hey guys, welcome to Digit.in, and we are all working from home during this lockdown. And what better way to bring you content that talk to experts in the industry and talk about things that are happening in the lockdown. And today we have with us Rahul, who's the co-founder of Lucidius. And to put things simply, Lucidius is, and would I be right, Rahul, in saying it's an ethical hacking firm that also deals in security?
So ethical hacking is something a very small scope of understanding the entire ecosystem of cybersecurity. So I can say that we are pretty much pioneer in cyber risk quantification, where ethical hacking is a part of the entire the package, definitely.
Okay, so how has it been in the lockdown for you and your team? How have you guys been working, keeping up with so much cybersecurity threats that have been happening, working remotely? How's that been working for you?
So I think there is a quote, that never waste a crisis. So, so we are pretty much on that quote right now, and I think we have like I told you before, we have more than 200 customers globally and all, and we can see a certain shift from securing their technology stack to securing their people. Now that's something which I was shouting from a long time, but I think. In this pandemic for sure that now the shift has been changed. So I can say yes, security and gaming is, I think, the two fields which are going to have a good scope, I feel, in this time to secure people and make sure that they are at home and say safely they are at home. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, security, you said gaming also, and of course, people are consuming a lot of content on OTT services, be it Netflix, Amazon, now Disney Plus has come to India.
Agreed.
So, for those that are able to have a good internet connection at home, there is enough to keep them engaged in this time, right?
Indeed, definitely.
Okay, so speaking about engagement, one of the biggest things that suddenly shot up was the consumption of, staying in touch with each other through apps like Zoom. And the reason I'm starting with Zoom is because when it came into highlight, it also was highlighted with a lot of security issues. So if you posted, let's say, a screenshot of your Zoom conversation, I could simply copy your meeting ID and join in or get access to the media that you've shared. Of course, when we're having this conversation today, Zoom has updated its app. The latest update is 5.0, which has fixed all these securities. But for those that are watching, can you just highlight about these things that happened with Zoom and how people can stay secure?
So I think there I can divide this entire conversation into two parts. One is something the responsibility from Zoom to ensure their customers are safe, and one is what is the knowledge level a user must be having to ensure that they are using Zoom in a more secure way. So options are there, facilities are given by the Zoom, but the question is how many people know about that, and how many people are actually doing it right for that. They are actually gonna use those settings in their existing meetings. So the first and most important part, I can say that the Zoom bombing was introduced. I think it's a new word, and Wikipedia is pretty much fast to grab that word and put a full 2 3 pages on that. So thanks to Zoom, they come up with a Zoom bombing. So it's a concept where your meeting is flooded with random people, and they try to intervene and see what's going on there. And so I think the first and most important part for everyone to understand that Zoom has provided you a meeting feature where you can protect your meeting with a password protection feature, which is a must thing. Now, when because of the work from home, in a day you have more than 16 to 20 meetings going very parallelly in a very fast manner. Someone is saying, okay, fix a meeting for me, fix a meeting for me, and that time you probably neglect the password setting feature because it takes 2 minutes. Now you don't understand the concern after if you skip those 2 minutes, and the data is going to be in the wild. That will cost a lot, and it's not a technology problem, it's a financial problem now, because the stakes are there, and the stakes your stocks can shoot go up and down in a very bad way once the data is out. And recently there is one of the company approached us, and they said that there is one person, nobody noticed, they were in the meeting and they were discussing next year's financial plan because of this COVID situation. And there are some cyber espionage was going on, and and one criminal was hired specially to use that Zoom exploit to infiltrate the company's board meeting on Zoom, and they were able to see that what's their planning and all. And now again they're changing their entire strategy to do that. But again, 1 year planning ahead with respect to this situation, now you have to change the entire thing. It's not possible 100%. So still there are many things which are being revealed to the maybe the rival company who hired these cyber criminals. So one is that password protecting. Second is they have given another good feature now in the update known as waiting room. Now by default this feature is now on. So ensure that and especially HRs and the non-technical people like the finance team who carries the most sensitive information of the company. I think it's a responsibility of IT teams to ensure that HR, human resource, and non-technical departments must understand how to use this. There has to be a proper training of how to use Zoom training in a good way, which I don't see is happening at a very large scale, but it's a need of the hour. So before joining the meeting, or before everyone joins the meeting, or after joins the meeting, make sure you stay there and see the list in the waiting room. And if someone is not having his real name, first and last name, please make sure that you will not allow the person to get in the thing, because usually in a big company people come up with like a ninja 123 or something like that, these kind of names, but you should not allow these names in the thing. And the last thing is safe. Zoom is not designed initially. It was I read from somewhere that Zoom was designed for a couple chat, initially in his development days, and maybe you're aware of that. But so it's privacy versus convenience. It was designed initially from the code for the convenience purpose, not for the privacy purpose. And now the shift has been changed from a personal usage to the corporate usage. Now definitely the things are working. So ensure that you don't share Zoom as a confidential platform where you share other files of your company information and critical information. Use email or Slack or whatever the other professional platform to share the critical information. Yeah.
So you just spoke about professional applications, right? I mean, we're talking on Skype right now. I have my office meetings on Hangouts, for example. There are so many other alternatives. And you're right, maybe Zoom got picked up because people like friends or colleagues just wanted to stay in touch casually. But the move for a business to adopt it was kind of really strange, considering there are so many offerings. Even Cisco has a professional video conferencing app available for businesses that we've seen use. So can you talk a little bit about some other secure options that maybe a customer can use if they are looking at, a professional meeting? What are the alternatives that they have? Maybe they're not aware of these apps.
So I think we did a thorough research when this bombshell happened. Every company who's our client is approached us and asked the same question that now tell us what platform we should use, and we did a very rigorous testing and security checks on each and every platform which in the market. We tested Google Hangout, then Zoom, of course, then WebEx, then Skype Business, like the way we are talking now, and then Microsoft Meetings also. And what we realized out of that I think WebEx is far ahead than anyone in the game. And of course, Cisco has done and they're the first one who introduced the video conferencing concept for the business in the business era. And definitely when it comes to encryption, privacy settings, and by default confidentiality and privacy to the users, I think it's far better than any other platform today we have. So I recommend everyone to go for that. And we published a technical report on this comparison also on Zoom security and other stuff on our LinkedIn. You can check there also.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another story that you guys actually helped us with was when the lockdown began, was with a lot of phishing related exercises, right? And there is a lot of spam going on the internet with not only related to phishing to get your data, but this is a news report I saw last night where people are kind of pushing information like this is the cure for coronavirus. Click here to get the cure. And, these are new types of phishing exercises that have started over the past week where we've been seeing this kind of news pop up. And it's not only to regular users. This is some information that's been going around on the dark web as well, to get some hardcore techie users also to get a little vulnerable. So keeping examples of, exploiting human emotion to get their data. Can you talk a little bit about phishing, and maybe then we can move on to talking on how people can be a little secure from such emails that want to steal your data?
So the thing is that phishing is not new in the market. It's there from a long time in the wild. But the only thing that criteria or the organized way it's now taking place is different. So I'll give an example. Previously, usually in February and March, people used to get mails from income tax department, fake mails that your this much amount has been refunded to you as your cashback with respect to your tax. And people don't fall for that. We are busy in their office, and now everyone is at home and waiting to save some bucks, from wherever they are possible. Now what criminal is doing now, what they are drafting this mail with respect to a very certain common amount, for example, 10,000 bucks. Now that amount basically caters a person from 3 lakh rupee tax to maybe a 1 crore rupee tax, and that 10 to 9 to 10,000 rupees is something which, and they're saying, okay, this is their account or whatever the thing, this 10,000, please see the attached PDF to see the details that why this 10,000 is given to you. Now some people are okay, no, I expect at least 1 lakh rupee, why are you giving me 10,000 rupees only? So now the curiosity is there to check that why it's only 10,000, or thanks, they are giving me 10,000. So again, the goal is for a criminal is to make you click on something. It can be a PDF, it can be a document, or maybe can be a link. So one is that, and second is definitely the COVID-19. We have seen so many emails, and I think till now more than 6,000 domains have been registered under COVID-19 name, and here and there. Some are legit, in a good way to show you the real stat, but some are usually malware. So, for example, if you heard about the recent heat map which was floated in the wild from a long time, which shows you, initially it was used to show you the coronavirus, but it was a malware. So that malware was basically came from a deep and dark web criminal. His name was XSS, and the idea behind was that he was selling this malware as a service, not as a, for example, on his platform, you'll go there, you register there, you pick a language. It's like a startup in crime, So you pick a very nice customer friendly environment where customer can customize their platform. You can choose a language with respect to their region, and okay, I need a map in Hindi language, I need this color, that color, and you place your order. And after two or 3 days, they will gonna send you the source code, and you can host it on the website, and then you can start, infecting people. So that level of customize we haven't seen before, but this level of customization they are giving to individual criminal, region wise, language wise, so that they can cater more audience and more. Third thing which we can see is ransomware as a service, and I hope you know about the Maze ransomware, which hits Cognizant and all. And these type of malware, usually it was designed by one criminal, and then he will infect everyone and then get the money out of them. Now what they are doing is they are making a platform, a web platform, where you can register there and you can make a ransomware on the platform, and you can use wherever you want. Now whosoever will be infected will be visible on that similar portal with your login and password. But the only condition is that the criminal who is hosting this platform and helping you to spread this malware, he'll get 10% of the machine's amount which people will pay you. Now that's kind of a business model we haven't seen before from the criminal's point of view. So
it's like multi-level marketing for criminals.
Exactly. It's like a hierarchy of, you can say, the hacking as a service. Something it was there, but it was not extensively being used by the ground level criminals to really empower them with the right tools at a right time. And I think both hits at the same time to users right now.
Yeah, but these tools, the way you're describing it, they've become so sophisticated that it is no longer as simple as receiving an email where Facebook is probably misspelled, and that is something easy for you to identify that this is this is not a correct email that I should be clicking on. These tools have now become so sophisticated that it's becoming more difficult for the average person sitting at home to click on it. I mean, I could get an email from a fake Government of India website saying, India lockdown details, and it would be very difficult for me to distinguish this from a legitimate email. So any advice to people on, these 2, 3, 4 key things, just absolutely hygiene check before you click on any unknown email?
So I think the first and most important part is usually whenever people get into trap, there are a few reasons of that. One is greediness, second is ignorance, and third is you can say again greediness. Actually, the greed of the person will make you land somewhere. 15% discount on Paytm cashback or something like that. So 80% of people go for greed. So the first thing and important, this is the time where nobody wants to pay you. Trust me. So you keep this in mind. So if someone is trying to pay you something which you don't expect, that you have to flag that for sure. And the most important part is whenever you receive any email, in every email you have to see the header of that email. For example, if the email is showing who.int and is saying that please pay us amount, WHO will never ask you for the direct amount. For example, there are certain applications which are developed by the local developers and they are hitting your inbox like Arogya Setu Part 2, something like that, right? So you should never download these applications or click on any link which is not coming from the legit source. Now, how to check legit source? In Gmail, in every email, there is a option known as check headers. So if you're a Gmail user, you go to the settings of the email. Not when you open the email, there is an option, right? In the option, if you click there, you will see a thing known as show original. Like past if I had like 25 years back, when you send a letter to someone, you always write to and sender and receiver, right? In this happen in the same way in every email from where it is originated and where it is going. So when you click on the show original of that Gmail, you will see received from. Now, received from, if someone is using a spoofed email address, like a fake email address of WHO or maybe some other government agency's name, you will definitely see that this email received not from that gov domain or maybe intwho.int domain. It's from maybe spam.mmm.webmail.com, something like that. That is little bit technical, but if you give a to Google search, I think you can land on the right way to understand that thing. Second is, I can say that always do a mouse hover on every hyperlink whenever you receive. So what criminal is doing right now, they're very smart. What they're doing is they are typing a entire hyperlink like https://www.rahultyagi.com, for example. Now this is a text, right? If I press enter, it will become a link, right? Blue link. Now what they're doing is they're doing the hyperlink over the hyperlink. They are using the text and then hyperlinking with some other website. Now a user will see, okay, this is the website, this is a link, right? But that's not a link, that's a text. So when you put your mouse on that link, you will see that where on the left hand side you will see that where this link will land you. And the only important part where you have to understand that the problem with the links is you will never know before clicking it. And once it clicks, it cannot be undo. The game is done.
Yeah.
And the third part, which is the most important part, is make sure that you do not believe on email which are claiming to give you the COVID-19 solution in the right way. And there are some NGOs who are on the name of NGOs, people are sending fake mails that please pay us in Bitcoins now. Because they know some people have black money or maybe some other illegal way of Bitcoins they have. Now they can't pay directly to the PM fund. So they said, okay, I feel for my country, even I'm a criminal, but okay, let me pay it through Bitcoin so that I feel good. Now he have the illegal money or maybe the illegal Bitcoins and he can pay that. Now but he do not know that money is not going to the real path. That money is going to the criminal. So government or maybe any private organization never ask for the money, at least from Bitcoins. We are far away from that as of now. But that you should not do in any way. And please make sure that you always follow for any instruction to the real websites of the government and who.int.
Yeah. Okay. Now, another very important hack that happened a couple of days ago was the Aptoide App Store saw a massive leak where a lot of their users' information was leaked. Now, Aptoide did put out a statement and they say that 97% of their users are not logged in. So they don't actually have to log in with any account. Like when we log into the Play Store, you need to have your Gmail account or something like that. A lot of products in India, especially budget smart TVs, offer users the ability to log in with an Aptoide App Store account, right? And even though Aptoide says that 97% of their 150 million users are not logged in, there is still that small 3%, 2% of people that were logged in. And this was a pretty important thing that happened with all the people's information being leaked. So can you talk a little bit about this situation as well?
So definitely, so see, whenever so Google, let's talk about Google first. Google Play Store is, I can say that it's far secure than any other app hosting platform, except the App Store, that they're a little bit above them because of the iOS platform. But when I say the Play Protect feature, which is there in the App Store, is Play Store, it's far secure. Now, coming back to AppDroid and coming back to, if you have seen the recent news that Oppo, Vivo, and other companies are thinking to bring a new Play Store for them to not to give the cut to the Google for the every development. So that's also going on there. Now, what I can assure you that the amount of research and the amount of money Google is spending on the addressing the vulnerabilities is far better than anyone. So now if you are using AppDroid or other thing, if it is for the TV, and again the exploit methods for the TV are limited as compared to the smartphone. You don't carry that much sensitive information in the TV. But again, there are few guidelines for the TVs also if they are running on these third-party Play Store apps which are running there. Like you have to hide your camera off the TV and make sure you check your mic if it is not compromised, because we have seen cases where people have compromised the Android device of the TV, and their entire house was on surveillance, because from the TV you can see the bedroom and so on and so forth. So that something is there, and and in terms of whenever you install any application from AppDroid or maybe Play Store, or first I don't recommend them to go that, and people still go there because of some free application which are paid maybe on Google Play Store and so on and so forth. There are other websites like APK Mania, and there are so many other websites which are claiming to be the third party downloading platform for apps which are there. But you never know after installing this application what permission they will be taking in the background, and even if you don't give them the permission right away, but in the background they will take few data out of your smartphone. So I don't recommend them to go there. And the one learning for everyone in this AppDroid hack was that if you see the criminal have published the entire username and passwords on the dark web, and it's on sale right now.
Yes.
We have gone and we closely mapped these passwords, and what I saw that people are using password 123, 123 4 5 6 7 8 9, and even these passwords were not in clear text, they were in hashed. But when we reverse engineering those hashes, if the password is dictionary based password and a common password, then even that encryption or the hash policy which was there, it's of no use. So people say, like a payment gateway, we save the username and password of the customer, but in a hash format. So even some criminal can get us, he will not able to understand. Now there is a flow in that. If the person have a password like 12345, even it is hashed, still people can get that password back. And the worst part was that you are not using the password only for that website. You are using same password for everything common.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the challenge.
That's one thing, because I mean, if you're an iOS user, for example, you do have the built-in ability to generate a complicated password, and then Apple itself remembers it through one password. There are a bunch of secure third-party apps which, you just have to remember one master password, and then there are just, and it kind of helps you generate. So yeah, it is not safe to have the same password. Moving on to the last part of this discussion is, we have seen that for the coronavirus right now, there are a lot of contact tracing apps being used internationally to help trace where, if somebody is infected, where they've traveled. But the biggest question here, of course, comes of privacy, because contact tracing apps are asking you for a lot of information, especially with relation to the location data, right? So can you talk a little bit about these permissions and, what are their pros and cons considering the current situation?
So I think that first of all, when it comes to your location, whenever you post anything on Facebook, 80% people, I can say, they reveal their location where they are, because by default they don't disable that, right? Now let us come to the real serious conditions which are there. So let's say an example. Whenever you install any application, they ask for certain permission. Now, if any application which is designed for a monitoring purposes, so for example, company want to know where you are, so that they can give you an advertisement with respect to your geographical area, or maybe the time where you are pausing. Maybe you have heard that, we have experienced that thing. I was traveling somewhere and I was near the pizza store or somewhere with one company, and suddenly I got a message, SMS, that 15% discount on the pizza. Now that is something, a kind of an like a spooky way of getting the advertisement, personalized advertisement, not only with respect to your interest, but with respect to where you are right now. But when it comes to the die and live situation like today we are, so with respect to the government application, the only benefit they will be getting is to ensure that people are safe, but there is no monitoring benefit they will be getting out of it. But yes, if it is a private company who is trying to do the same thing and all, and asking so many permissions. And even the recent application which are there from the government, I can say that the Bluetooth and the location which is, and these are the basic things which are required to know whether someone is nearby. So if I deny this information, then definitely there is no use of doing that. So that is, I think, it's safe now as of now. But for a private organization, if they're trying to do the same thing, we have to pretty much double down on the privacy policies, what they're taking and how they will be using that for sure.
So just to get a little better understanding, let me elaborate on what you're saying is, so for example, every day when I leave home from work on a regular day, Google knows what time I leave, and I get a notification around that time every day in the morning saying how much traffic there is on my way to work, and similarly when I'm coming home, right? But that's because I've given Google Maps that information, and Google Maps is a location-based application. Similarly, if I download a Torch app, it will require permission for the camera because the camera is linked to the flash, right? But that app doesn't need information about, let's say, my contacts. There are so many apps that I have seen where it doesn't need contact information, it still asks for it. It doesn't need SMS information, it still asks for it. So again, any hygiene list that somebody who's watching this needs to keep in mind that, hey, I'm going to download apps from the App Store, but these are the permissions I should definitely not give.
Definitely. So the first and most important part is like companies like Facebook. Or other companies, like when something you're getting for free, we have to understand that you are the product which is being sold in the market. That's a standard statement everywhere, everyone is using, and it's true also to a certain extent also. But now when it comes to your privacy, and you have to use free stuff, but you can choose from where. It's just like if I have to give my data, I have to give it to this country or that country. Now that country never got caught of compromising my data, so I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Today, you can't say that I cannot use these two countries' applications because I want to save my privacy. It is a need of the need of the hour. So what you can do as a end user, the first and most important is you have to download the app from Play Store or App Store. Second, whenever you're installing an application, make sure you see the publisher company's credibility. Usually, like you take an example of Torch application. I can go to Torch application, there has 1 lakh download, 100,000 download. I get, okay, downloads are good, ratings are good, let's download. But when you go to the publisher developer's name, it is jingola@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Now there's an individual sitting there having 1 million users, username and information with them. Now that's a concern. So I'll go with the reputed company. There's a company behind it. I can go to their website. Are they publishing more apps or not? So relying on an individual, and again, it's also a debatable topic. For example, if I today will launch an application, it is 100% safe. My email is Gmail ID. Then I'm saying, okay, don't trust them. But again, you have to be a little bit aware in terms of finding whether that is legit source or not. That is second. Third is, before downloading the app, please see the comments. Usually what criminals are doing right now, this will take 2 minutes, but this is something serious, I can tell you. Google has introduced the Google Play protection. What they do is, whenever you upload any APK on the Play Store, they will scan line by line automatically with their algorithm, and they find out whether it's malware or not. They try to compile the code and try to see the output of that code, right? Now what criminals are doing is they are dividing the malware into two parts. They used to do that. Now Google again have filtered it, but still there are some applications like that. They divided the source code of the malware into two parts. One part they will put another application, like a battery saver application, they launch on the Play Store. Now when the Google compile that, there is no proper execution because the code is half, right? It's harmless, right? So it started, but out of 100 lines, 50 lines are there. So there's no meaning of that. And now when you install the first app, within that app, you will get another notification, get this app also, RAM booster also for free.
Yeah.
When you download second app, in the second app, the next 50 lines of code of the malware is installed. Now you have all two applications in your phone, and those applications interact with each other, known as intent. So there is a thing known as like when you share a picture from WhatsApp to Facebook, it calls another app, right? It's called and known as intent. So now both code get compiled, and now the malware is running, and your phone is infected. So in this way, they bypass the Google Play Store, but still the malware was delivered. And again, from the greed point of view.
Yeah.
You get that application for free. And maybe you have experience in one application, you get a notification of another application also, that please download that.
Yep.
So that has to be. Now the good part about this is how to track that this type of applications are malware or not. So people who downloaded those apps, they always comment in the comment section that I downloaded this app, but after downloading the second part of the app, my phone got hanged, it got advertisement, it got spamware, adware, so on and so forth. So do not go and do not trust the publisher. If he's an individual, as of now, I can say, do not trust the number of downloads, trust the comment section and trust the company behind it. It has to be a legit company. So read the reviews and then install. And even after installation, if some application are asking certain permission, so I can say that Google Play Store has increased so many good features right now. Like at 2 o'clock, every time your application gets scanned. Second, you can actually now permissions whenever any application is asking the permission in the background, suddenly you get a pop-up. So for example, I'm using OnePlus. It gives me a pop-up like your mic is being used by this application. Do you want to do something with that? These initiatives Google has taken, but most important part is like always disable your unknown APK feature. So we have seen the professional people who are at a very big designations. They give their phone to their kids, and now you're at home. Obviously, you can't say no to your kid to use your phone. But that phone is having the most critical information, private and professional, and there is a chance that your kid is going to install that one game from here and there, maybe out of Play Store, and that can lead to compromise your calls, SMS, and so on and so forth. So these are few hygienes you have to take care. And last is never install any APK or any application from the SMS or maybe a WhatsApp group message. That is huge red flag. So it's better to go to the official website and the official apps of the companies. Yeah.
Absolutely, Rahul. That was great. That was all the questions that I had. Is there anything that you would like to highlight about security, or maybe anything that we haven't spoken about yet?
I think that I would like to give a small announcement that from 9 months we were working on something known as so challenge for the industry was from a very big time is how you can quantify people's knowledge on security. So for example, if I ask you how secure, how much battery you have in your phone right now, you can quantify it, 10%, 20%. But if I ask you how secure is your phone, or maybe you have taken one cybersecurity course, you scored 100 out of 100, but there is still not a guarantee you will not fall for the phishing pages, right? So it's a fight between the knowledge and the behavior. And what we saw that behavior is the main thing. Everyone is feeding you the knowledge. Even I'm feeding you the knowledge right now. The people are watching. But again, after listening to it, how you will react at a right time, will you able to recall my knowledge or not, which I'm giving you right now. So that is something which we try to figure it out. And now I think we are coming up with a very good platform to map the people knowledge, because you can patch any security on the planet, any technology, but there is no patch of human stupidity. And how to cater that problem, I think I'm excited to launch very soon, and I hope the people, we call it Project X as of now, but I am happy to introduce, maybe with Digit, we will be publishing it soon. And this will change the entire game in the cyber awareness in the world, I can tell you. And this will be the first platform who can quantify people knowledge, and will make sure that we'll patch the stupidity in a very big way.
Absolutely. That will be great. It will be great to check this out when it comes. Rahul, thank you so much for joining us on this today. And guys, we have a bunch of these interviews with industry experts on various topics up on our YouTube channel, or they will be uploaded really soon. Stay tuned, and to be updated on these, you can always subscribe to our channel, and to get all the videos, click on the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you, Rahul, for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Stay safe.
Yes, thanks, Rahul. Thank you so much for this. This was great.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.